All right, what up? We're live. John Mosales here, the NFL Fantasy Today show. It's Monday, Martin Luther King Day, right?
Yep, Martin Luther
Uh,
King Day.
yeah. So we just had the divisional round. We finally had some great games after maybe the worst weekend in football history after the wild card round. I got Max Silveri. Is that how I pronounce it? Silveri?
Silvera.
Silvera. Okay. Oh, I got it. End of season. Max with me. We're just going to talk football, talk fantasy, talk this past season, talk next season. He did the tight ends, so we're going to talk tight ends and football. Okay, Max, what's shaking?
Nothing. Excited to get into the pod. Like you mentioned, a couple great games yesterday, so excited to dive into those and then kind of get into some of the fantasy implications for next season, what we're looking forward to, key things to note for the draft coming forward. Draft next season, I guess.
Cool, perfect, yeah. Martin Luther King's a holiday?
For me, it was. For most people, I think it is.
Okay, because I just know it is a day in Canada when basketball starts at noon.
Yeah, no, a lot of basketball games on. A couple good ones I was watching earlier, too.
Yeah, it used to be my favorite day of the year when I was mostly basketball, but now mostly football. But so first, anything jump out at you from the weekend?
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
I think what jumped out to me is just the Eagles' dominant run game, and obviously that's led by Saquon Barkley. And I mean, there was a lot of teams hesitant to pay running backs this offseason. Giants obviously didn't want to pay him. Saquon did the commercial about the owner, how he wouldn't be able to sleep. But I think game after game in the entire season, Saquon just showed it. He's pretty much untouchable, and his ability to get to the second level of the defense is kind of unparalleled. It's like once he gets the hole, if there's a guy in line with him, he's going to break away. He has that breakaway speed, and he put that on display multiple times yesterday. So obviously it was snowy conditions, tough weather game, passing game wasn't really going well. But Saquon was able to break off a few big ones, which really propelled the Eagles to the victory, in my opinion. And I think that's what they're going to have to hang their hat on, as well as their defense, obviously, going forward in the playoffs. So that was definitely exciting to see. And then, I mean, between the Lamar and Josh Allen matchup, that was another great matchup.
Let's just go one game at a time here. So, yeah. So that Eagles game, we've just seen teams really pivoting to kind of cold weather football. Right? I think we saw, well, I guess I'm jumping ahead, but the Texans, like Mahomes didn't even attempt to pass to a wide receiver or something like that, or complete one. Like the Bills, Josh Allen had 127 passing yards. And then Hurts had 100 and change.
Yeah, all the winning quarterbacks less than 200 passing yards, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Except Jaden Daniels, I guess. But
yeah.
In the weather.
So right. So run. We're pivoting to the run game. Maybe not explosive plays, control management. I mean, if you're going to do that, you got the Philly O-line and Saquon. It might be an unbeatable strategy.
Right. And I saw a stat, I think they had it up on the game the other day. It's like, as the season gets extended from 16 games to 17 games, potentially 18 games, we're going to see more and more snow games. So when it gets to this later in the season, we're going to see colder weather. We're going to see teams need to rely on the run, especially in the playoffs, because that's when all the cold weather games are going to be. So it's like you'd think it would be advantageous for these guys to start paying the running backs, or at least looking into investing into a quality running back. And I mean, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and Saquon, three guys who changed teams in the offseason. I think they all kind of proved that point.
And Joe Mixon,
yeah. So it's like some of the top running backs in the league here, and the teams that didn't pay him are kind of looking like, why didn't we pay this guy? I saw even some former Giants players tweeting like, how can we not afford to pay Saquon $13 million? Look what he's doing. Like they decided to pay Daniel Jones, and he's not even on the roster anymore.
So it's just funny how cyclical football is, right? I think we had running backs were probably getting paid too much or getting drafted in the first round. And then that kind of seemed like it stopped, even though we did have Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs, and then nobody's paying running backs. And now you think it's coming full circle, and then running backs are back in fashion.
Yeah, I think running backs are back in fashion. I was doing more of an overall NFL take, but for fantasy, I think that's the case as well. This year, I think it was kind of like a historically healthy year for running backs in general. Obviously, McCaffrey was injured first pick, but that was somewhat known going into drafts that he was dealing with a nagging injury. But I think in general, in fantasy, at least I try to target like a workhorse running back, and those seem to pay off. Obviously, injuries are a bigger factor with running backs compared to receivers, considering the pounding they're taking on a weekly basis. But it's like guys like Derrick Henry, 17 games, Bijan, 17 games, Jacobs, 17 games, Achane, 17 games, Gibbs, 17 games, Saquon, 16 games, and he rested the last week. So it's like just looking at the top of the list here, all these guys played the entire season. They're majority healthy, and when you get a guy who's touching the ball that much, especially in good offenses, that really sets you up for a baseline of fantasy success on a week-to-week basis. Less volatility, I'd say, than like a wide receiver who's have to rely on getting the ball from a quarterback.
It's so funny, right? Because usually you think the opposite. Running backs kind of go down. But then this year, wide receivers, right? Nico Collins, Brandon Ayuk, Chris Olave, Tyreek Hill was hurt all year. AJ Brown got hurt, right? It's so do you think this is just a one-off and it'll kind of maybe revert back, or teams figuring something out?
No, I mean, health is something that's impossible to predict. I don't think every running back is going to stay healthy every year, but I do like to get a good foundation with running backs in the draft early if I can. I will say about the receivers, although, some of them had down years, let's say Tyreek Hill, you mentioned, Cooper Kupp. There are guys like Jamar Chase who can really propel you to a victory. Like Chase was like a late first round pick, I believe, coming into the season. And he had one of the best fantasy seasons of recent memory. And my question with him is, one, if he gets paid this offseason, assuming he gets paid, will that affect his production? Will he be as motivated? And then also with T. Higgins, what's going to happen with him? Because if T leaves, the defense is going to be keying more on Jamar Chase, obviously. Not that they already don't, but it's like that could affect his production. Will he be overdrafted? Obviously, he's going to be one of the top picks next season regardless. But that is just something else I'm looking out with the wide receivers, I'd say.
So if you had first overall next year, who would you take?
I mean, I think the consensus is going to be Jamar Chase. Personally, I would maybe go with a running back. I actually I'm going to have the first pick in my league next year because we do it based on the standings the previous year. So I'm somewhat started to think about that. But I think
guys like came in last?
No, I came in first. I won. So it's like whoever comes in first gets first pick.
Okay.
And it's a keeper league too. So I got a few keeper options, but I got Bucky in the 15th. So I'm like, all right, maybe I'll just pair Jamar Chase with him. But if it was a redraft league, I think I would maybe go lean more towards a running back like a Saquon, safe bet. Obviously, people are concerned about the tush push, but when you got a guy rushing for over 2,000 yards, that's not as much of a concern. The thing is, obviously, people are like, oh, whenever someone goes over 2,000 yards and so many carries the next year, they're going to fall off or get injured. But even with a fall off in production from Saquon, he's still going to finish as a RB1. Worst case, I'd say back end RB1, assuming no injuries. So I think he's pretty safe. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, we saw what he did the last few weeks without David Montgomery. I think that's really something fantasy people won't want to forget. I don't think they will. He's going to be a first round pick next year as well. But it's like if Montgomery goes down, he's a potential league winner. And we saw that the last few weeks of the season in fantasy. He scored, this is half PPR, 26, 23, and 24 points in the final 3 weeks of the regular season, not counting week 18, which I think was a great game.
Yeah, that game. We'll go talk about that game too in a second. So I'm obsessed with tight ends, so that's why I love that you're writing about tight ends all year. I think, let's say the Raiders go get a QB. Where would you take Brock Bowers? Like, let's say they get Darnold, right, who had over 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. That'd be a great QB for him, right? Like,
yeah, that would be okay. Honestly, I mean, Darnold was good. It's easy to look good when you have Justin Jefferson catching the ball and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson and Aaron Jones on the ground. I think the Vikings are set up to make their quarterbacks look pretty good. If he goes to the Raiders, will he have that same success? I don't know. Regarding Bowers, though, I think obviously I was tuned into the tight end position all season. I do think the torch has been passed. He's the top tight end, going to be the top tight end going forward. I know we had a show a few weeks ago, and I mentioned this. He's a borderline first-round pick, and I still stand by that in 12-team leagues. I think he's probably borderline first-round pick back to the first round. And, I mean, you said get a QB like Darnold. I feel like that's probably the best caliber they could maybe get in free agency or the draft. But given that, I would say it doesn't really change my opinion much. He's not going to be going above the top running backs. He's definitely advantage at the position, but he only outscored Kittle by 10 points this season, and that was with Kittle missing 2 games. He outscored Trey McBride by 20 points. McBride had 1 less game. So right there, I mean, there's other top guys. Even a guy like Jonnu Smith off the waiver wire, 4th highest tight end, was only like 30 points behind him on the season. And he really came on late. So I wouldn't push it too high with Bowers. I think end of the first round, early second round next year is probably a fair place for him. But if you want a solid tight end, advantage at that position weekly, go out and get him.
So big thing was the onesie positions. I found this summer. I was writing a lot about it here. Onesie. Right? If you're gonna take QB, don't take tight end. Take tight end, don't take QB. What would you do if you had to for next year pick one? Like from doing tight end all year, do you think you just shotgun approach it because you can get the Jonnu Smiths, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tight end is still more valuable than the QB overall, just because with QB, they're both like, obviously the Jonnu Smith kind of came along late in the season, but like, for example, Baker Mayfield, he was kind of like a not highly drafted / not drafted guy, finished the season as QB4. Jaden Daniels drafted late. Jared Goff drafted pretty late. These guys are all in the top 10 QBs. Bo Nix. It's like, I wouldn't reach for a QB. I mean, I never do, but I wouldn't recommend it going forward. And I would kind of say the same about tight ends as well. But between the two, I'd prefer to lean towards the tight end. Even maybe someone like a Trey McBride. I know he mentioned I was third in the rankings, but he didn't score a touchdown until I think the final week of the season, a receiving touchdown. So it's like, if he gets a few more touchdowns, he's tight end 1 on the year. And if he gets a bunch of touchdowns, like, it's probably not even close there.
Okay, and then what were the big letdowns for this year? I mean, Dalton Kincaid's the one that jumps out of my brain the most. Sam Laporta actually finished really strong, so I think he kind of gets a bit of a pass.
Yeah, so tight ends wise, talking letdowns, obviously Sam Laporta was one of the highest drafted, like you said. He did finish somewhat strong, but on the year, it looks like he was like tight end 8, which if you're picking him in the 4th round or 3rd round or whatever he was going in, it's like, that's not really return. That's bad value, obviously. And then Kelsey.
Yeah, but back in the year, he scored in almost every game, right? So, if you got him, you made the playoffs, right? I bet last 8 games, he's probably tight end 3, tight end 4.
Yeah, last 3 weeks, he got 14, 12, and 15 points. So definitely respectable, but it's like, at that point, did you even make it there if you wasted one of your top picks on a guy like him?
Yeah.
Another top pick, Kelsey. The thing about tight ends is when you draft someone that early, you're expecting them to outperform the position by a decent margin, or else they're not really worth that draft capital, because they're not going to be scoring as many total points as the running backs, as the tight end, as the receivers. So it's like, if they're not outscoring their fellow tight ends by a decent amount, they're not really doing anything for you. So Travis Kelsey, 1 spot higher than Laporta on the year-end rankings at 7. Another bust for tight end. Mark Andrews, biggest bust of the season early on, but he actually finished strong. Like, he scored a bunch of touchdowns late, but he was probably dropped after week 5, where he had multiple 0-point weeks in a row, hadn't scored a touchdown. So it's a tough position. And obviously Andrews had a rough game last night as well, with his critical fumble and then drop on the goal line. So
good segue. But so, yeah, that Bills was like, did you have a dog in that fight? Like, it was kind of a great game, but then you look at the stats and nobody really played well.
Yeah, I was rooting for the Bills, and they pulled it out. I think, with the stats wise, I think it was more just like a weather thing. It was a tough game, 2 good teams. But yeah, Mark Andrews had a very tough game, to say the least. And I saw a tweet that's saying they could save like $11 million if they cut or trade him. So maybe they'll explore that possibility. Who knows? Obviously, he's been a great tight end for a while, so it'd be kind of a big move for fantasy. But if he's out of the picture going forward, Isaiah Likely obviously next in line. Baltimore loves to use the tight ends, and I think he would be someone who definitely benefit from that if they were to move on from Andrews after that kind of abysmal performance.
Yeah, Likely scored the touchdown too, right? At the end. So, yeah, he's a beast. That game was just funky. I had the under, which lost by half point, which is crazy considering Josh Allen had 127 passing yards. Henry was under 100 rushing. It was just such a weird, funky game. But maybe is that football now, right? 2 great teams. Nobody wants to make mistakes, even though Lamar did. But really, it's just, control the clock, right? If the ball's in your hands, the other team can't score.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the playoffs, obviously teams, unless they're down, are going to get more conservative if they don't want to be taking a bunch of deep shots. Like Lamar tossed up a deep shot early and just way overthrew it, interception. It's like that could have been the difference between winning and losing. Like, it's a 2-point game. If he doesn't do that, they control the possession there, maybe get a field goal. Who says they couldn't win?
Yeah, they didn't punt all game. So
Right. It's like taking care of the ball obviously becomes paramount in the playoffs. I saw a tweet again. It was like teams with the most yards this week, and it was all the losing teams. And then it's like teams that won, 0 turnovers for them. So at the end of the day, if you don't take care of the ball in the playoffs, you're not going to win. And the Bills did that, and same with the Eagles. The Rams obviously had a few fumbles in.
Yeah, like it's ugly, and if you want action or something, like if you're betting AJ Brown again, which I can't imagine why anyone would after the week before, or anyone on the Bills other than Shakir, it's just there's just no chance that the bets were dead on the doorstep. But we had that Lions Commanders game where Ben Johnson just got signed with the Bears, he's head coach, so that's going to be big for Chicago. But I mean, would the Lions, do they blow it up? Do they, it's what?
Yeah,
3 years in a row.
I don't think they're going to blow it up. I mean, they had a great regular season. I mean, they'll be back. I think with them, the issue is their defense. They obviously had probably the most injuries on the league on the defensive side of the ball. I know, like, almost the majority of their starters had injured at some point or missing some part of the season. And as the season wore on, the injuries just kept piling up. So, and that was pretty apparent in the Redskins game. Obviously, Jaden Daniels kind of picked them apart. And I think they'll be back when they're healthy next season. They obviously have an aggressive mentality in terms of going forward on 4th downs, play calling, stuff like that. But I mean, and from a fantasy perspective, I think Jameson Williams, don't forget about him. Obviously a big play specialist, probably one of the fastest players in the league, and also has the size to go along with it. So he could be an upside player on a week-to-week basis for fantasy, and those guys can really win you weeks. So definitely someone to keep in mind next season.
Yeah, oh yeah, Jameson. I was big on him 2 years ago, and then I got off the bandwagon. But we saw the Rams, right? They had Goff. They went to the Super Bowl. They didn't score a touchdown, and then they traded 2 picks for Stafford, right? Lions have enough, I think, capital built up in talent. They could do the same thing, right? And maybe they go trade Goff to. Maybe not back to the Rams, but what's a good team? What would be a good hypothetical Goff trade? You get a nice veteran QB to get over the hump.
You're saying who could the Lions get in return? Who's available? That's tough. I mean, I don't think he's available, but I love the way Baker Mayfield has played the last couple of years.
That's a great one, Baker. Yeah, imagine Baker on the Lions. That's the best thing I've heard all day. That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be unreal.
If they offered 2 picks, 2 first-round picks, I mean, I don't know, Tampa, I think would have to seriously consider it.
Yeah, I think the thing there is, though, the Lions would feel like they're overpaying for Baker Mayfield. He was basically on the Panthers, a free agent, more or less. They could have signed, and then they're like, we're really going to give up 2 firsts for that. I don't know if they would do that, but hypothetically, I'd love the idea.
They get Goff back. If you get Goff back, I mean, I don't know. It was. Yeah. People probably thought the Rams were stupid for giving up 2 firsts to get Stafford, but it looked great trade for the Lions, great trade for the Rams. I don't know. But so I was talking on with the guys last week. If you were to redo this draft, right, with Caleb, Jaden, and Drake May, your boy, where would you go now? Where does it go? I was saying Jaden won before he beat the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been Jaden this whole season, more or less. Like, it was obvious in fantasy. Obviously, with the rushing appeal of Jaden, he's even more appealing in fantasy than reality. But the Commanders had a great season. He led them to the playoffs, multiple playoff wins. So it's like, at this point, I think Jaden's number 1. That's not really a question. Then it just comes down to Drake May or Caleb Williams. And I wasn't really impressed with Caleb Williams this year. I think Drake May showed flashes, but the big difference there is you have to factor in the weapons. Like Drake was dealing with probably the worst receiving core in the league, and Caleb Williams had Keenan Allen, although he's old. He had DJ Moore. He had some playmakers there, and he really didn't perform how you'd want him to. So I would go Drake too, and then Caleb.
Oh my God.
What about you?
I would go wide receiver. I'd go Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr.
Oh, well, I didn't know that was part of the equation. Yeah.
Well, you can take whoever you want.
Oh, okay. I thought you were just talking the quarternbacks.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, May could be good, but we've just seen like guys will have great rookie seasons. Like Trevor Lawrence didn't even have a good rookie season. But, guys come in with the pedigree, they'll look okay, and then they'll flash in the pan, right? It's like, I know Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. are going to be superstars. And neither had a QB all season, and they were breaking records. So, I love Jaden. I like Caleb. Drake May. I watched some New England. I get it. No coaching, no O-line, no weapons. But I think he's still a toss up.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's a for sure thing either. But I'm with you there. Brian Thomas and Neighbors, I would definitely pick ahead of him as well.
Okay, good. Yeah. The guy was just saying still Caleb Williams. I thought Caleb looked fine. I mean, with Ben Johnson, if they invest in the O-line, I mean, Bears are going to be a trendy pick again. But do the Commanders? We were talking the pre-show. You're a new Philly fan, so Commanders Philly. Do they have a shot, or did they didn't have a shot against Tampa? They didn't have a shot against Detroit. Did they said again? They got no shot for Philly.
No, they definitely have a shot. I think against Philly, it's going to be a tough game, but Jaden has showed he can get it done in the clutch. And if you have to rank the 4 remaining quarterbacks, I think Hurts is last. And honestly, I don't really think it's too close there. So in the playoffs, a lot of it comes down to the QB. If the Eagles get behind for some reason, they're going to have to start throwing. And Hurts hasn't really tested his arm recently at all. Like he rarely throws. A lot of Philly is really a toss-up with him. Like he's a great player, obviously, but it seems like he's more of, honestly, maybe a game manager at this point. He just kind of takes care of the ball, does what he has to do. He's not asked to do a lot. He can step up, and he's great with his legs, but as a passer, it's a little bit unknown. So I think, like I said, if the Commanders jump out to a lead, that could be the ideal scenario for them. If Philly gets up, though, and they can just run the clock with Saquon and their defense is able to get to the quarterback, Jalen Carter maybe get some sacks, I think that could be a difference maker too. But it's definitely not a cakewalk for the Eagles at all.
Okay, yeah, but the only thing is, right, Commanders, I think 30th ranked run defense, Saquon number 1, and with a bullet, I mean, it's just they're gonna have to do something. They're gonna have to do,
they're gonna have to stack the box. Yeah, they're gonna have to stack
zero blitz, like leave AJ one on none. But I mean, it hurts. It's just I think when he's playing well, he can be as good as anyone in the league. He's shown that in the Super Bowl that they lost, but like he was taking some bad sacks yesterday, right? He's just
the safety. I mean, could have got that ball out, I think, but he was potentially injured. So I know the announcers were talking about it last game, like, "Oh, Hurts, what can he do? Is he injured?" So maybe give him a pass.
Apparently, what was I reading? Eagles coach Nick Sirianni said, "We'll see how that goes as this week goes on." When talked about Jalen Hurts' knee injury, obviously that's a nothing statement, but
yeah, I mean he'll play, but he's going to be playing potentially injured, so that's another thing to consider. If something happens and he gets injured, Kenny Pickett has to come in, then that's a whole other ball game too.
What would Saquon's rushing yards have to be where you would consider under? I mean, we're probably going to look at the highest line in the history of a running back rushing yards. 135?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I feel like weekly I see it at like 120, and it seems like he just seems to breeze past that. So, like I said, it's just that breakaway potential with Saquon. Once he gets to that second level, he just breaks away from people and no one can catch him. So
if he wants to, sometimes he'll just slide.
Yeah, that's the other thing. So maybe he'll slide, and then I mean, he won't break that line. But his rushing line is going to be up there, and for good reason. Best offensive line and one of the best running backs in the league. So I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. It's just will the Commanders be able to stop it, basically.
And then also, do we know what potential weather for next week? I know it's early, but it's I think it's the coldest day of the year here in Toronto.
It's cold here. Still snowing a little here. I'd assume another cold game coming up probably. So likely lean on one game.
Okay, and then KC Buffalo. I mean, I guess it's the matchup. I don't know. Are you a superhero guy? It's smart. Marvel versus DC. It's kind of everything we want, right? Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, I'm at least rooting for Josh Allen. I feel like the rest of the country probably is too. After the Chiefs and the refs seem to keep getting away with it week after week, game after game. I think the Bills have a great chance to beat them. Obviously, I think the line's pretty close, the opening line, but it's just can they get over that hump? And maybe this is the year. Not a great receiving core for Josh Allen, but he seems to get it done. And he's kind of great at cold weather games, I would say, in terms of the goal line when they get it down in that 5 to 7 yard area. No one's better at scrambling it in than him. So
true.
I like their chances. And the Chiefs have been shaky. I mean, they've lost, I think, 2 games all year, but everything is like one score, one of the worst teams against the spread. It's like, I don't know. It has to stop eventually, right? They can't keep getting all the calls. I think they did get they released the refs though, and they have one of their favorable refs. I don't know if it was Clete Blakeman or someone like that, but I think it's Clete Blakeman, who's this historically Chiefs ref. But
oh
we'll
my
see.
God, it's honestly, it's just so ridiculous, right? He had those two, the early what was it, head to head
Yeah, when the
helmet to
Texans kind
helmet.
of dove into each other and they called the unnecessary roughness or something.
Right, and then another one on when he was running and he was like sliding and then he got hit. But I mean, you're a runner that like they don't need the help, right? I'll never forget that Bengals game, right, when they got the extra down.
Yep.
It's just
And even
it's not
even
fair.
the Super Bowl against the Eagles when they had that holding call, kind of a phantom hold. I mean, he grabbed him a little.
Well,
like,
yeah, I agree they shouldn't have called it, but at least that one was like that was a penalty. You know, should you call it in that spot, up for debate, but you know.
Right. Game's on the line, minor hold. Do you call it, decide the Super Bowl on this holding or let him play? I don't know.
Yeah, of course you let him play, but at least that one is at least defensible, where some of
Yeah.
them are just atrocious.
Yeah.
And then I mean the Bengals again, when he was running and then they late hit him. They called late hit to give him the first down. It's a joke. But I think the Chiefs. I think this is a great Chiefs team. I think their defense is elite. The coaching's elite. The running game is not really there with Pacheco. He's not all the way back, but there's so many weapons. I mean, it's just with the rookie Hollywood back. DeAndre Hopkins pretty much has had 2-3 weeks off now, so he should be healthy. Playoff Kelsey. I think the Chiefs are. The margin for them to lose is just sliver. So the Bills got to play perfect, win the luck, win the turnover, get every call, and then somehow make sure Mahomes doesn't have the ball with 2 minutes left with a chance to win the game. It's
an uphill battle, but I'm rooting for him.
Everyone's rooting for Josh Allen, but okay. What else? So we covered a lot of ground already. So 27 minutes in. So fantasy for next year. So my favorite thing is to do before your draft, if you're going to get something tattooed on your body to remember, don't take CMC. That'd be mine because I took him last year in a big money league and he screwed me. What do you like? Let's just say 12 team, normal, 1 QB, PPR.
Yeah, I mean, my thing would be don't sleep on the rookies. So I was in a league this year, and everyone's like, "Oh, this isn't a dynasty draft. Your whole team is rookies. You got Neighbors, you got Bucky Irving, you got Jaden Daniels, you got Brock Bowers, and look how that turned out. I mean, all of them were draft day values. Like Neighbors 7th round draft pick, Brock Bowers 9th round, Jaden 11th round, Bucky Irving 15th round. It's like I get the rookies may take a little while to come into their own. Brian Thomas Jr. I had him too, so it's like. Rookies take a while to come into their own, obviously, compared to some of the more established players. But if you can draft them and hold them, they're going to produce eventually. I mean, they should. I mean, some bust, obviously. But for the most part, like Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver 4 on the year. Neighbors, wide receiver 7 on the year. Bucky Irving finished really strong. Jaden Daniels, top 5 QB. It's like Brock Bowers, tight end 1. So, I mean, I think maybe people some don't know about the rookies as much if they're not as tapped into fantasy or – kind of what's going on in the NFL, and they kind of want to go with that safer name who's a little older. But I think definitely my advice would be don't sleep on the rookies. Doesn't matter if it's a dynasty or keeper league. They're great in redraft too. So definitely try to target them early and often.
Who's another rookie running back that was good? I was trying to think if you could make an all rookie team to win your fantasy title.
Yeah, I mean,
Blake Moore wasn't good. Trey Benson wasn't good.
Yeah, running backs, there wasn't a ton of value.
Ray Davis? Is there one other one? Maybe sleeping.
There was the backup on the Jets who was good, but never really got
Braylon Allen.
Braylon Allen. No one else rookie-wise really popped this year, but next year, obviously,
big running back here. That's what everyone's telling you.
So there'll be some options next year.
But I love that with the rookies because it used to be, a year ago, 2 years ago, it was kind of like draft a rookie receiver, but then keep them in the barn, and then they all finish strong, right? Yeah. But now, I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. had a great game in week 1, right? They're coming out the gate. So I love that. Like, it seems like everybody was kind of like, draft rookies, because like in the NBA, rookies for fantasy are terrible. You just never works except for Wemby. But now it seems like they've all, I don't know if they've graduated up a step. They're coming in, they're more ready, but it's still a bit of a mystery box. But it seems like, we're still getting 3, except for Marvin Harrison Jr., we're getting 3 rounds of value on all these rookies who are just swinging leagues.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's obviously going to be the top rookies that are a little overhyped, like this year, Marvin Harrison Jr., where you can't really necessarily return value there. But there's a bunch in the later rounds, and these guys could even be second or third on their depth charts to start the season, just because the coach is like, oh, I'm not putting the rookie one on the depth chart, and it looks like he's wide receiver 3. Is he really going to get the catches? But they tend to kind of cream rises to the top, or whatever that expression is,
But I love that. Yeah, I think my thing, your whole bench should be rookies, right? Like,
yeah.
Right. We had Puka the year before, right? Though my whole thing this summer was who's the next Puka Nacua, and it was kind of Brian Thomas Jr. Right? He was, everyone knew about him, but he was drafted late because they had a lot of weapons, and then he just swung leagues. Okay, well that's a great one. Do you have another one for me? That one was so good.
Another one is, I mean, this kind of goes back to what I said earlier in the show, but don't sleep on the volume. Like running backs who just like Josh Jacobs, I feel like he kind of had fallen out of favor, some late second or third round picks, but it's like this guy's a workhorse for the Packers, a good offense. He's going to get the carries. He's going to get the touchdown. He might not be as explosive. And a Derrick Henry, he also fell out of favor. Saquon Barkley, he was like a second round pick in some leagues. It's like these guys who are going to get the carries, they're going to produce, assuming no injuries. So I would just go with them. Bijan, obviously, he was drafted a little higher, but same story there. So I think just getting guys who are going to be consistent week to week and then swinging with the upside with rookies is a good 1-2 punch.
Okay. I like that. And then what about, so let's say it was super flex. Because super flex is my favorite. How would you go to the top 5? I mean, does Jaden Daniels sneak in there?
Yeah, I mean, super flex, I feel like it's basically like a 2 QB league, more or less. Some people don't do that, but in that case, I would probably go QB heavy. Lamar or Josh, I feel like it's a toss-up there. Obviously, Josh doesn't have the same weapons necessarily, but he can really get it done.
He might, though. Cooper, and a whole offseason Cooper, second-year Keon Coleman. Shakir more in that slot receiver, and then maybe Dalton Kincaid gets healthy. I think his weapons could be great next year.
Yeah, they could be good. I honestly think Cooper has fallen off, and I don't know if he's going to recover, but maybe he's just getting used to it. But yeah, I do like Keon Coleman, and I think Shakir and even Matt Collins has showed some flashes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would go Joe Burrow. Jaden Daniels is probably a top 5 pick in that scenario. And then, I mean, I don't know. It's tough. I feel like it would probably be mostly QBs, maybe a running back sneaks in at the end, or Jamar Chase of the top 5. But after like Allen, Lamar, Daniels, Hurts, I don't know. He has the tush push, but
yeah, he's pretty much just living off that tush push.
Yeah, he's living off the tush push.
Okay, we're gonna go a couple more minutes here. So predictions for next week. You think so? Your heart and mind going with Buffalo, or?
Yeah, I'll stick with Buffalo. I'll go with the Bills and the Eagles. I think Chiefs, they're bound to lose eventually, hopefully. Hoping Josh Allen can get over the hump, and the refereeing has been pretty egregious, so maybe the NFL will be like, tone it back a little, guys. Regarding the Eagles, maybe more of a heart. Maybe more of a heart pick, but I think, the Commanders making the Super Bowl would be a crazy upset. It would be a great story, obviously, but I think the Eagles have the best defense in the league and best running back, one of the best offensive lines, good receiving core. Hurts, although he's the worst of the 4 QBs, he's still capable of getting it done. So I think those will be the 2 teams that come out next week.
Never discount the team of destiny, though. What do you, I know you're a little bit of a betting guy. What do Commanders preseason? What would they to win the Super Bowl? They must have been like 200-1?
Something like that. Yeah. Now I looked at the recent ones, like they're like plus 700 or 800 now, obviously in the final four, but even still, that's like pretty slim chance given they're in the final, they're in the NFC Championship game plus 800. It's like everyone's still counting them out, is what I'm saying.
Oh my God. That'd be the dream to have a nice, huge ticket on them. I would just be so happy. But okay, that's it for us. So, this is our new time for next week or two, Monday pod. Monday, Thursday, I believe, 5:30. So, but everyone just check it out. We're always posting on our Discord and Twitter. Max has got his Twitter at MaxQuality11. Hopefully he'll be with us next Monday. Can you do next Monday? We'll
I
talk
don't
off air.
know. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay. But yeah, we got 3 more games left in the season, so only a couple more pods and off season, so yada yada. But yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks Max. This was finally a great week of football. I thought I was gonna have to stop watching because the wild card round was that bad. But so go Bills.
Sure.
All right, go Bills. Okay.